This is episode 43 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Ashley Wilson. Ashley is the founder of Bar Down Investments, the co-founder of Apartment Addicts, and House It Look, the best-selling author of The Only Woman in the Room, a Bigger Pockets book. With knowledge and inspiration from 20 women real estate investors, she's been all over Bigger Pockets for years, managed over 10 million in construction, and been involved in over 120 million in transactions since 2009. Ashley, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, no, it's great to finally talk to you. We had one of your partners at Bar Down, Jay Scott, only 6 episodes ago, so it's great to finally get in touch with you as well.
Nice. Yeah, he's amazing.
The story of how he got to you, I think, is so amazing, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. But before 2009, did you have general interest in real estate or any? Because it's always interesting to me to find out how everybody got to real estate, like the first time they decided this was going to be something for them.
Real estate was intriguing to me when I was younger, and having a father as a general contractor and having his own business, I saw it from the other side. I never thought it was within reach. My family and I grew up relatively poor, so the fact that we could benefit from real estate was something that I couldn't even have dreamt of. Thus, I never really thought to pursue real estate. I never knew how I could leverage existing skills that I have or network with people and use what they have and partner it with skill sets that I have to be able to enter the industry.
I think there's a trickle down effect of pride of ownership. So you as a GP or full owner of a complex, if you start with pride of ownership, take care of the things that need to, that trickles down all the way to the newest tenants, oldest tenants, the ones who have never felt it. And I've always said, like, don't you feel like when you take over a new apartment complex, that changeover is so important because you actually have to convince everybody that you're not like the prior landlords that let it get that way. And that's not easy some of the time because it's just they're used to somebody who doesn't really care what happens to the apartments.
I completely agree with you.
Have you guys, I mean, what's that transition like? I mean, say you're doing whatever it is, 100 plus units. How are you making that transition with your team to kind of make sure that everybody knows, like, no, we're like the good kind of landlord? Because we all know there's bad landlords. We pick up for them all the time. But what type of things do you do to make sure that it gets off started on the right foot so they know, like, we're going to try to help you. It can't work for everybody, but your goals are in line with what they should be. You just have to get them on board as well.
Communication, transparency, and hitting the ground running. So our business plan is well defined prior to us acquiring the property. So on day one, we literally hit the ground running.
Yeah.
All communications sent out. It's very transparent what we're going to do to all of the tenants. We let the tenants know, these are the changes that you're going to be seeing in the upcoming months. Should you have any questions, here are contact information, the appropriate contacts and contact information to get in touch with the appropriate people. If you have any concerns, questions, comments, etc., they can all be filtered through those channels. We also have literally walk the site the day we acquire it with the contractors to shore up everything, get the contract signed, and get things rolling. So we typically change over a property in under 18 months, and that's all of the renovation encompassing of evicting non-paying residents. Oftentimes, the previous landlord allows criminals on the property, so it's very hard to create a safe community when you have, for example, convicted felons and pedophiles and all sorts of people who do not support a safe environment in which families can bring their children on the property. So what we try to do is clean house immediately, start renovations immediately. So people see that we're not just sending out a letter saying it's coming months later, right, then something happens. But communication is key to any business. I forget where I read it, but it was something to the effect of 95% of businesses fail because of lack of communication. And when you're acquiring multifamily, you're not a real estate investor, you're a business investor. This is a business. How you own and operate is all based on your business skills, not your real estate investing skills. They're two separate ways in which you would operate based on, you know, whether or not you're a real estate investor versus a business investor.
Yeah.
I like to say that I invest in a business and real estate just happens to be attached to that business. It's a bonus. But we look at it in terms of a business and how do we want to create a long, sustainable business that people can be proud of all the things, you know, that I was saying before. But communication, communication, communication. You cannot communicate too much in these situations because you have so many balls in the air and a lot of things that are moving very quickly. So it's really good to keep communicating with your residents and making sure that it's known what you are doing and why you are doing it.
I live in New Jersey, is not tenant friendly. There's not a lot of like multifamily syndicators who are like, yeah, let's go to New Jersey or New York because they're so tenant friendly. Are you looking for landlord friendly states where you can make sure that if you need to do mass evictions at once, that it'll at least be easier?
I personally do, but I make an argument that you don't need to do that. I think that anyone can invest in any given market and be successful in any given market because it all depends on what someone's skill set is. So, for example, people could argue, well, it's easier and more profitable to be in a landlord friendly state. And if you're going to do the work, why not do it there? Because you have less resistance if you have legislation backing your operations and it's easier to process an eviction, as an example. But someone could also argue it's easier to manage non-distressed assets and core plus
Yeah.
assets,
Yeah.
and I go after distressed assets. So at the end of the day, you got to pick your poison and you have to figure out what your strength is and what you can be advantageous on working in what space. I have always found across my entire career, the more nichey you become, the more lucrative it is because the less competition you have. So my business operations right now, we've set up our entire business operations for landlord friendly states with heavily distressed assets. Do I think that I would not be successful in maybe a state like New Jersey? Not with those same business operation
Right. Right.
structure, but if I shifted my structure, I'd actually probably be more lucrative in New Jersey. Just to your point, less people are going there.
I
So
agree.
in terms of my going in cap rate, I'd have a more competitive going in cap rate than I do, let's say, in Houston, which is where we target most of our acquisitions, just due to competition alone. So
Yeah.
I think, you know, I was asked to coach this other coaching program. They bring in experts on the weekend and do like a full day seminar, and they wanted me to talk on market selection, and I did this full day training. And there was this whole discussion at the end because they were like, we have never been in a training, a market training, where it wasn't very clear as to what you actually do. It's always, you know, very biased information based off of what that person does,
Right.
but you provide a dual sided argument. And I said, well, everyone should always provide a dual sided argument because you you're forgetting your personal input on that situation has an influence on the success. So leverage your experience, leverage your skill set, and pick one that fits for you. Don't go off of my experience because my experience is not your experience, right? So you can learn from my experience, but it doesn't mean that you have to follow my footsteps. You can create your own path.
As a large scale apartment syndicator, what do you think the hardest part is now? Like, again, this landscape and the acquisition mode, what's the hardest part for people looking for those large scale apartments right now?
Pricing is still a big there's still a big gap in the industry. It's still approximately 10 to 15% off buyers' expectations and sellers' expectations, is what I'm seeing. I also think debt is a huge problem. So debt is probably forcing that gap even wider than 10 to
Yeah.
15% in terms of expectations. But the lack of availability of bridge debt, construction loans, those things are going to have a trickle down effect on pricing. So that's a huge problem. Another problem is insurance in certain markets is skyrocketing.
Mm.
We went, some numbers in Houston, we went from like 975 a door to quotes anywhere from 1450 to 1600 a door on one property.
Yeah, that's a
This
big difference.
year, which is insane, but that's not as insane as what they're looking at in Florida. So we're looking at it's changed like 835, and all of the quotes we got from multiple sources were over $2,100. And this is not in a flood zone.
Yeah.
This is a property that has take the run loss report, no history. So in terms of insurance killing deals, we've talked about it for years. People projected that it would happen a lot later than it's happening, but it's happening now. I think we can all agree the natural disasters that are happening throughout the country are starting to be not a 1,000-year storm or 100-year storm, but annual storm, and that is wreaking havoc on the insurance industry, and it's having a huge impact not only on cash position for investors, but also on the NOI approach, which is one of the ways and arguably the most common way in which multifamily and commercial real estate is evaluated.